We are never safe from the outside world. No matter where we are, we always suspect someone coming after a specific target or ourselves. Us humans need to take precautions and be aware of our surroundings at all times. In today's video, I'll be talking about some of the most disturbing kidnappings that have happened. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and today I'll be talking about the most disturbing kidnappings that have ever happened. So let's go ahead and get started with the video. Now, before I get into the video, I just want to do a quick intro and say that thank you for 200 subscribers. It really means a lot to me, and I don't know how that happened, but you guys made it possible. So thank you all for the support and love. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started with the video. Facebook Live torture. Now, when it comes to like social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, we always have a feature that we can always go live wherever we are. However, people would take their live streams a little bit too far. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's go ahead and talk about the case that I'll be talking about in this video. On January 2017, 4 teenagers decided to kidnap and torture a man who has special needs in Chicago, Illinois. The 4 perpetrators, who were identified as Jordan Hill, Tesfaye Tafeez Cooper, and sisters Brittany and Tanisha Covington. The unidentified 18-year-old was dropped off by his parents at a McDonald's restaurant on December 31st to meet with his friend, Jordan Hill, who later became one of his attackers. The pair drove around for 2 days, sleeping inside a van that Hill had allegedly stolen without the victim's knowledge. Before driving and ending up at the Covington sisters' home, the 30-minute disturbing video shows a man tied up and his mouth covered with duct tape, cowering in the corner of a room. The attackers would then shout and laugh, making racist jokes and remarks on Donald Trump, who was president-elect at the time, saying stuff like "fuck Donald Trump" and "fuck white people" as they proceed to punch him and kick him. The video that a woman broadcasts on Facebook Live shows one of the attackers cutting into the teen's scalp with a knife, leaving a bald patch. The captive was also made to drink from a toilet bowl. Police said that the victim is an 18-year-old with special needs. Officers found a disoriented young man wandering a Chicago street. It traumatized him that it took most of the night for him to calm down so that he would be able to talk to the police. 4 people have been charged with hate crimes and kidnapping for attacking the teen. Thousands from all 50 states and other countries as far away as Australia have donated to a GoFundMe account set up for the teen. A 10-year-old girl from North Carolina sends all of her $7 Tooth Fairy money. Another person wrote, "We heard your cry. You didn't ask for us, but your burdens are ours. So we are here to forever walk with you."
Donald Trump, white people, boy.
No. Goof.
Yeah, man.
My sister was
Yeah,
trying.
thinking it's like,
Oh, man. My sister said this not funny, y'all.
Abducted, tortured, and murdered. Yes, I know both abducted and kidnapping are not kind of the same terms, but I use that term because it's kind of similar, so just keep in mind. I should have said that in the intro. I am so sorry. But yeah, let me go ahead and get started with the case. This case has to be one of the most gruesome cases that I ever talked about in one of my videos, so let me go ahead and talk about the case. Junko Furuta was a 17-year-old Japanese high school student who was abducted, raped, tortured, and murdered. Her abuse was mainly perpetrated by 4 teenagers: 18-year-old Hiroshi Miyano, 17-year-old Joe Ogura, 16-year-old Shinji Minato, and 17-year-old Yasushi Watanabe. The attack took place over a 40-day period starting on November 25th, 1988. The case in Japan is known as the Concrete Encased High School Girl Murder Case, as her body was found and disc inside of a concrete-filled drum. Junko died from the injuries on January 4th, 1989. The prison sentences served by the perpetrators range from 7 to 20 years. The brutality of the case shocked Japan, and it is said to be one of the worst cases of juvenile crime in the country's post-war history. Child slavery kidnappings. John David Gosh, otherwise known as Johnny Gosh, was a paperboy in West Des Moines, Iowa, who disappeared at the time frame at 6 and 7 a.m. On Sunday, September 5th, 1982, Johnny left home before dawn to begin his paper route. Another paperboy who went by the name of Mike reported that he observed Gosh talking to a stocky man in a blue-toned car near the paper drop. Another witness who went by the name of John Rossi saw the man in the blue car talking to Gosh and thought something was strange. Gosh told Rossi that the man was asking for directions and asked Rossi to help. Rossi looked at the license plate, but he could not recall the plate number. Rossi stated, "I keep hoping I'll wake up in the middle of the night and see that number on the license plate as distinctly as night and day, but that hasn't happened." As Johnny walked the block north Pam where his route started, a paperboy noticed another man following Gosh. A neighbor heard a door slam and a silver Ford Fairmont speed away northwards from where Johnny's wagon was found. John and Noreen Gosh, who are Johnny's parents, began receiving phone calls from customers along their son's route, complaining of undelivered papers. John performed a cursory search of the neighborhood around 6 a.m. He found Johnny's wagon full of newspapers 2 blocks from their home. The Goshes immediately contacted the West Des Moines Police Department and reported Johnny's disappearance. Initially, the police came to believe that Gosh was a runaway, but they changed their statement and suggested that Gosh was kidnapped. But they were unable to establish a viable motive. They turned up with little evidence and arrested no suspects in connection with the case. A few months after his September 1982 disappearance, Noreen Gosh has said that her son was spotted in Tulsa, Oklahoma, when a boy yelled to a woman for help before being dragged off by 2 men. Over the years, several private investigators have assisted the Goshes with the search for their son. Among them are Jim Rothstein, a retired New York City police detective, and Ted Gunderson, who is a retired chief of the Los Angeles FBI branch. In 1984, Gosh's photograph appeared alongside that of another Des Moines paperboy, Eugene Martin, who had gone missing that year. On milk cartons produced by the Des Moines-based Anderson Erickson Dairy, Gosh was among the first missing children who had their plights publicized in this way. In 1997, Noreen said that Johnny escaped from his captors and visited her with an unidentified man. She said that her son told her that he had been the victim of a pedophile organization and had been cast aside when he was too old, but subsequently feared for his life and lived under an assumed identity, feeling it was not safe to return home. Gosh's father, John, divorced from Noreen since 1993, has publicly stated that he isn't sure whether the visit actually occurred. Many have also speculated that the visit did occur, but it was someone else pretending to be Johnny. Authorities have not located Gosh nor confirmed Noreen's account. His fate continues to be the subject of speculation, conspiracy theories, and dispute. In 2006, the case received renewed publicity when his mother said that she found photographs on her doorstep depicting Gosh in captivity. Some of the photos that she received were said to be children from a case in Florida. However, one of the boys was never identified. Noreen Gosh insists that the boy is Johnny. As of now, 42 years later, there have been no arrests made and the case is now considered cold, but remains open. Johnny has not been found to this day. The Facebook setup. Yet another Facebook kidnapping, but this time with a different story. Dustin Moraine, a 16-year-old boy who police say was tortured by 3 other teenagers in the shed behind a Southeast Portland home, won't return to David Douglas High School and instead plans to join the Job Corps, his mother said. The 3 teens were identified as Jenna Montgomery, Jess Taylor, and Blue Combach. They did this as a hate crime and as payback for calling them a homophobic slur on Facebook. For the kidnapping to happen, Jenna lured Dustin in by acting like she's interested for some after-school fun. They then hit him in the back of the head with a crowbar and tied him up instead. The teens would then spend the rest of the day torturing him. First, Blue took a BB gun and shot Dustin in the chest, groin, and finger at point-blank range. Next, Blue took a box cutter and carved a swastika symbol on Dustin's forehead, while Jess held a gun at Dustin, believing that the Nazi symbol will leave him as an outcast forever. They would then steal his iPod and drove by an ATM so that he could give them his money. After that, they wanted to steal his favorite skateboard, but Dustin jumped out of the car and ran to a nearby auto repair shop to phone for help. All 3 teens have been sentenced for their crimes. Jenna received 9 years and 11 months for luring Dustin in. Jess received 7 years and 9 months for his role. However, Blue committed the most acts of torture. He would be sentenced the longest for 11 years. Another teenager who went by the name of Shane Connell, at the age of 14, was not present during the attack. Since he gave permission to let it happen in his grandparents' shed, he was sentenced for 10 years. Dustin's swastika scar has been healed up. However, he needed to keep his hair long to cover it up. To this day, Dustin still has PTSD and nightmares since the attack. Daughter trapped in basement. Elizabeth Fritzl was born on April 6, 1966 and raised in her family's home in Amstetten, Austria. When she was just 11 years old, Josef started sexually abusing her. Elizabeth was held captive in a basement and sexually abused by her father, Josef Fritzl, for 24 years and had 7 of his children. However, years before the abduction, Josef remodeled the basement of their family house in Austria, where he eventually lured and imprisoned Elizabeth. When she disappeared, Josef claimed that she ran away from home, convincing even his wife Elizabeth's mother, Rosemarie, that she also left to join a cult. In 1984, he asked the then 18-year-old Elizabeth to help him hang the final door in the cellar. During the process, Josef held an other sewed cloth to her face until she was unconscious and then moved her into the cellar. where she'd be trapped for 24 years. Joseph physically, mentally, and sexually abused Elizabeth almost daily starting on the second day of her captivity. He told everyone that she had run away to join a cult and forced her to write letters to support his story. Elizabeth was alone, save for Joseph's abuse for the first 5 years of captivity. During her 24 years of imprisonment, Elizabeth gave birth to 7 of her father's children. Joseph took 3 of the kids, Lisa, Monica, and Alexander, to live with him and Rosemarie, staging 3 incidents in which a baby would be left on their doorstep with notes from Elizabeth asking for Joseph and Rosemarie to take care of for them. Meanwhile, 3 other children, Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix, remained locked in the cellar with Elizabeth. A twin boy named Michael died days after birth, and Joseph later admitted to incinerating the corpse. Joseph specifically designed the basement to make it nearly impossible for Elizabeth to escape from it, or for anyone nearby to hear her if she screamed for help. He came up with a makeshift security system and ensured the cellar was soundproof. I brought in a heavy door of steel and concrete and equipped it with a remote-controlled electrical monitor, which would open it only after a numeric code was entered. He told Austrian prosecutors. Sky News reported that Joseph told Elizabeth that their children that if they tried to escape, they'd be electrocuted or that position would be released into the cellar, killing them. Joseph claimed that he initially locked Elizabeth in the cellar because she was smoking, drinking, and not adhering to his and Rosemarie's household rules. But the longer Elizabeth was locked away, the more difficult it became for him to consider letting her out. With every passing week in which I kept my daughter captive, my situation was getting crazier, he said. I was afraid of being arrested and of having my family and everyone out there find out about my crime. And so, I postponed my decision again and again until one day it was really too late to free Elizabeth and take her upstairs. According to Joseph, his sexual abuse of Elizabeth began when she was in the basement after his feelings intensified over time. I knew that I was hurting her, but the urge to finally be able to taste the forbidden fruit was too strong. It was like an addiction, he told officials. On April 19, 2008, Elizabeth convinced Joseph to bring Kirsten to a hospital for medical treatment. Once there, Joseph gave Kirsten's care team a note to demonstrate that Elizabeth was Kirsten's mother who was away in a cult. Doctors made a televised appeal to Kirsten's missing mother to come forward and provide information about Kirsten's medical history. Elizabeth, who had a television in the cellar, saw the TV report and convinced Joseph to release her and the 2 other children, sons Felix and Stefan, who were still imprisoned in the cellar with her. On April 26, 2008, Elizabeth visited Kirsten at the hospital with Joseph after she was freed, at which point Joseph was arrested on suspicion of sexual abuse. The police questioned Elizabeth about what she endured, but she wouldn't cooperate unless they promised her that she'd never have to see her father again. Joseph was charged with coercion, deprivation of liberty, incest, rape, and enslavement of Elizabeth, as well as the murder of newborn Michael by negligence for not getting him medical attention. He initially pleaded guilty to all charges except enslavement and murder, but after a few days of his criminal trial, pleaded guilty to all charges. The New York Times reported that Michael's negligent death carried the highest sentence and prosecutors demanded the maximum time for Joseph. On March 19, 2009, a then 73-year-old Joseph was sentenced to life in prison. Cleveland kidnappings. In the years between 2002 and 2004, Ariel Castro abducted Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Gianna De Jesus from the roads of Cleveland, Ohio. He would then hold them captive in his home at 2270 Seymour Avenue in the city's Tremont neighborhood. All 3 women were in prison at Castro's home until 2013, when Berry escaped with her 6-year-old daughter, to whom she had given birth while captive, and then contacted the police. Police rescued Knight and De Jesus and arrested Castro hours later. Michelle Knight disappeared on August 23, 2002 after leaving a cousin's house. She was 21 years old at the time. On the day of her disappearance, she was scheduled to appear in court for a child custody case involving her son, Joey, who was in the custody of the state. Amanda Marie Berry disappeared on April 21, 2003, the day before her 17th birthday. She was last heard around 8:00 p.m. when she called her sister to tell her that she was getting a ride from her job at a Burger King at the corner of Lorraine Avenue. The FBI initially considered her a runaway until a week after her disappearance, when an unidentified male used her cell phone to call her mother. He said, "I have Amanda. She's fine, and will be coming home in a couple of days." Georgina Lynn De Jesus went missing on April 2, 2004 at age 14. She was last seen at a payphone around 3:00 p.m. while on the way home from her middle school at West 105th Street and Lorraine Avenue. At the time, she was friends with Castro's daughter, Arlene. Shortly before Gina disappeared, she and Arlene had called Arlene's mother, Grimaldo Figueroa, for permission to have a sleepover at De Jesus' house, but Figueroa replied that they could not, and the two girls parted ways. Arlene was the last person to see De Jesus before her disappearance. De Jesus was under the impression that Castro was picking her up to drop her off at home, and she trusted Castro because she was friends with his teenage daughter. No one witnessed her abduction, and an Amber Alert was not issued, which angered her father. He said in 2006, the Amber Alert should work for any missing child. Whether it's an abduction or a runaway, a child needs to be found. We need to change this law. Upon kidnapping Michelle Knight, Castro took her to the upper floor of his house. He tied her hands and feet together and pulled her up using her hands, feet, and neck. He left her there for 3 days without food. Prosecutors at Castro's sentencing wrote that diaries kept by his victims speak of forced sexual conduct, being locked in a dark room, anticipating the next session of abuse, dreams of someday escaping and being reunited with family, being chained to a wall, being held like a prisoner of war, missing the lives they once enjoyed, emotional abuse, Castro's threats to kill them, being treated like an animal, continuous abuse, and desiring freedom. Castro then kept the women locked in bedrooms, where he forced them to use plastic toilets that were emptied frequently. He fed them 1 meal a day and allowed them to shower twice a week at most. Knight told police that Castro had impregnated her at least 5 times and had included miscarriages each time through beatings, hitting her with dumbbells, punching her, and slamming her against the walls. He also starved her. Knight's grandmother told reporters that she would require facial reconstruction surgery due to the beatings that she endured, and had lost hearing in one ear. At one point, Knight had a pet dog while in captivity, but Castro killed it by snapping its neck after it bit him while trying to protect Knight. De Jesus told law enforcement that Castro raped her, but she did not believe that he ever impregnated her. On Christmas Day 2006, Castro allegedly ordered Knight to assist in the birth of Barry's child, which took place in a small inflatable swimming pool, and threatened to kill her if the baby did not survive. At one point, the baby stopped breathing, but Knight was able to resuscitate her. Castro occasionally took Barry's daughter out of the house, including to visit his mother. She called him daddy, and Castro's mother, grandmother. In 2013, he showed one of his adult daughters a picture of the child and said that she was his girlfriend's daughter from a previous relationship. He had told others that she was his granddaughter. Barry taught her daughter how to read and write. On the morning of May 6, 2013, Barry was finally able to make contact with Castro's neighbors, leading to her escape with her 6-year-old daughter and the rescue of De Jesus and Knight by authorities. According to police, Castro had left the house that day and Barry realized that he had failed to lock the big inside door, although the exterior storm door was bolted. She did not attempt to break through the outer door because she thought that Castro was testing her. According to the police report, previously, Castro had tested the women by leaving the house partially unlocked and exits unsecured. If they attempt to escape, he beat them. Instead, Barry screamed for help when she saw neighbors through the screen. Castro was arrested in a McDonald's parking lot shortly after the victims were rescued. He was charged with 4 counts of kidnapping and 3 counts of rape on May 8th, which carried prison sentences of 10 years to life in Ohio. 2 of Castro's brothers, Pedro and Anel, were also initially taken into custody, but were released on May 9th after police announced that they had no involvement in the kidnappings. The charges against the brothers were dropped. At the sentencing hearing on August 1st, Castro was sentenced to consecutive life terms in prison, plus 1,000 years, all without any possibility of parole. He was also fined $100,000. As part of the plea bargain, the house where Castro had lived and held the woman captive was demolished on August 7, 2013. Knight was present and handed out yellow balloons to spectators, which she said represented missing children. The balloons were released before De Jesus' aunt began the demolition with a swing of a crane. The house has been completely blurred out of the street view of Google Maps. As of 2018, a park and garden sits in the spot formerly occupied by Castro's house. Castro was found hanging from a bedsheet in his detention cell at the Correctional Reception Center in Orion, Ohio, on the evening of September 3, 2013, 1 month into his life sentence. He was 53 at the time of his death. Prison staff performed CPR on him before he was taken to the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center in Columbus, where he was pronounced dead shortly after. That same day, he wrote a note invoking scripture and saying that those who confess with their heart will be saved. God loves you, Castro wrote in all capital letters. for all are sinners. We all fall short of the glory of God. Christ is my Savior and yours. The following day, Franklin County Coroner Jan Gorenak announced that a preliminary autopsy had found the cause of Castro's death to be suicide by hanging. He was later cremated. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thank you all for watching this video. Please subscribe if you have not already. It would really mean a lot to me. Follow my Instagram and join my Discord server. Both of the links will be in the description below, so if you want to go ahead and join those, you can. But other than that, leave a like on my video, comment, share, subscribe to my channel, and turn on post notifications so that way you don't miss any new video that I upload. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you all for 200 subs, and I'll see you guys whenever I upload.